Hi everyone, it's your boy Sean and welcome to Epic 7. I absolutely love this game right now. I've been playing it non-stop for the past 2 days and everything about this game, skill animation, character design, the depth of combat system, the artifact and gear system, everything is just absolutely amazing and I love it. And yes, I have that guy, Sets. Top tier unit in Reddit tier list, boys! I was so lucky to get him. And he'll be able to carry me through the game as a damage dealer, but in this kind of game, you build team and not units. So in this video, I want to talk to you guys about the net 3s that will be able to carry you through the game in dungeons, in labyrinth, in so many parts of the game that you will definitely want to build them. When you start the game, one of the units that they give you through free-to-play missions is Elson. And he will be able to provide you with attack and defense buff. It means you'll be able to do more damage to enemy and receive less damage for yourself. This skill has 3 turn cooldown and the buff lasts for 2 turns, which means you'll be able to get buff up all the time. He also have an AoE heal that increase proportional to enemy max health. It means that in the boss stages or in PvE in general where the enemy have a lot of HP, you will be able to heal up by a lot because healing is proportionate to enemy max health. Also, default attack decrease attack power, so when you have decreased attack debuff on enemy and defense buff for yourself, you will be receiving very little damage. So overall, he's a very well-rounded support that provide buff, debuff and healing, and he's free to play, given to you via missions. So do get him as soon as possible. He's definitely the top 1 net 3 in my opinion. Number 2 that I think you guys must have for early games, or I think even for boss stages in general, is Kairos. This girl has a self-buff skill that allows her default attack to do 3 poison effect. So her default attack have 35% chance to inflict poison, but when you self-buff, you have 100% chance to inflict 3 poison. Poison deal damage based on the enemy max HP, and in boss stages where those units have a lot of HP, poison is extremely good for bosses. Also, she brings an AoE debuff extension on the enemy team so that her poison will last longer, deal more damage, as well as your attack debuff or whatever you want to put on the enemy unit. That debuff is gonna last another turn. So forget all your nat 5. I believe this is one of the most effective unit to kill bosses due to the poison effects, because there's no way early game player can have good enough gear to deal big damage to bosses. But this skill, it doesn't rely on any stats on your Kairos. You just need to land the poison effect on the boss and you're good to go. It will deal a lot of damage. The third one on the list, in my opinion, is definitely Ruzit. Why? He increased allies' combat readiness. So in this game, it's called combat readiness. In Summoner, so it's attack bar. In this kind of turn strategy game, the faster you fill up your combat readiness, the faster you're gonna take a turn. And in turn strategy game, turn means everything. So with this 15% combat readiness buff, you'll be able to get turn more frequently, and he also buff speed AoE. It has a 3 turn cooldown for a 2 turn buff, which means you'll be able to buff combat readiness and speed very frequently. He also bring attack debuff and also speed debuff. So this unit bring 2 debuff and 1 buff. Also combat readiness buff. It's amazing to weaken down bosses for your team to do damage as well as take more turns. Especially when he has speed debuff and speed buff in one unit, it helps your team out a lot. Also, 2 of his skill deal damage according to his speed. And in this kind of turn-based game where speed stats is like the most important stats to have, because the more speed you have, the more turns you get. And in turn-based strategy, turns mean everything. So you're gonna be building him with a lot of speed to boost combat readiness more often. He'll be able to do more damage as well, which is amazing. Okay, back to waifus. This girl, I think, is one of the best nat 3 healer, if not the best nat 3 healer in my opinion. Third skill is a single target heal, proportionate to enemy max health. Again, gonna be very good in boss stages, give immunity, and also increase her own combat readiness by 50%, so she get turn more frequently. It has a 3 turn cooldown. And she has 50% combat readiness buff, which means the cooldown of this skill is like 2.5 turns, okay? She has a 2-turn cleanse, AoE cleanse of debuff for all allies and heals debuff allies. In boss stages where boss most likely gonna do AoE damage and put AoE debuff, she will cleanse all the debuff and heal everyone in your team. 2-turn cooldown! And she has a sleep in her default attack. Not so much healing and not enough, you want her to even put enemy to sleep, which is a CC mechanic. She has such low cooldown on her healing. My god, she's so good. So she put up immunity, healing, and cleansing. So good, man. One debuff that we are lacking, and this 5th waifu brings it. Third skill, do defense debuff for the enemy. So defense debuff allow you to do more damage. When you have attack buff and defense debuff on the enemy, you do so much more damage. And what is so good about this girl, she has a passive that increases combat readiness of all allies by 10%. So every time that she takes a turn, your team will get extra combat readiness. And once again, combat readiness equals turns, and turns means everything in a turn-based strategy game. Special mention to Nemunas. We talk about a lot of combat readiness buff for your team, but this girl, her default attack have combat readiness reduction to the enemy. She can do that every single turn. So when your team has speed buff and combat readiness buff, you have this girl to do combat readiness reduction. Theoretically, the boss will never gain a turn if your team is really fast. Her second skill, increase combat readiness by 30% and do damage based on enemy max health. Gonna be very good for boss stages. It also means you don't need to build her with good attack power. Moderate attack power and moderate tankiness will be preferred because she's gonna do damage based on the enemy max health anyway. So she control the boss combat readiness and also do a lot of damage based on the boss max HP. Bring her in with Tiara. It's gonna be really good. I think these two units works really well together. Okay, another waifu that I noticed is this girl. She look hella fierce and I like that. She have AoE attack buff for your team, which is really good. She has a decreased defense in her default attack, which is really good as well. So gonna work well with those that provide protection for your team. This girl will provide aggression for your team with attack buff and decreased defense. These two skills works well together because with attack buff and defense debuff, your team will do a lot more damage on the enemy. She also extend buff on herself, so she'll have longer attack buff for herself. That was the top net 3 list that I would like to recommend to you guys, but now let's take a look at my box for a little bit. So I have sets, supposed to be one of the best adventure unit in the game because of the amount of AoE damage that he can do. It's insane. In the future, I'm gonna build him with vampire set so that he can do lifesteal and he can farm for me as well because of the AoE damage. My main tank and healer right now is Armin. This waifu has an AoE shield and heal, AoE decrease hit chance, and also a chance to stun the enemy doing damage according to her defense. So very good tank for me right now. Also an extra healer for my boy Elson. I'm using him because he's just so good, okay? You can't just not use him. Also at the same time building my waifu, continuous damage, Kairos. I pull this guy, he is also a healer, okay? Increased combat readiness and continuous healing buff. Instant boost a turn to another unit and also heal that unit. Really good healer in my opinion. Decrease attack by 50%. I think this is a net for Elson. So good because they look alike and this guy just do things that Elson do as well. Also, I'm taking notice of this waifu, Judith. I didn't mention her in the list because I don't think she's progression friendly, but she boosts combat readiness by 20%. If I awaken her, she'll gain stealth mode after using her mark of acceleration as well. And stealth just means that you don't get targeted. You only take damage from AoE attack. And when she's in stealth mode, she can stun the enemy. So AoE combat readiness buff and also stun and default attack. I think it's gonna be very good in PvP. But as for the future, okay? I 4-star her by accident. Wasted resources, god damn it. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Let's continue this Epic 7 journey. See how I progress into the game. I'll try my best to progress as fast as possible so I can bring more relevant content to you guys, guiding you guys through the game with me as well. I'll see you guys in the next Epic 7 video. Okay? Have a good one.